Hello. So, be honest, who actually guessed that we'd get a new map? And along with that, who guessed that we would actually get not one, not two, but actually technically 3 new things to actually play with? And you could say that we only got 1 new playable, so 1 new thing to really play. But technically, we ended up getting whole new kits for Eurhino and Kai, in which no one ended up touching in the first place before this update anyway, except for the madmen who wanted to challenge themselves. Or possibly torture themselves. But anyway, all I can say is that I am very happy with this update, even if it does have some growing pains or some little issues that are already being worked on as we speak. And thanks to the feedback from the community about some of the big issues about the new map or the update, some things have already been fixed. So, let's get on to what the video is going to be about. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the new map. I'm going to talk about what I like, what I dislike, what I find really interesting. You get the whole spiel. I'm very opinionated. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about Tylosaurus and Eurhinosaurus and Kaiwhekea, and then we can have some clips, gameplay, some fights that I've had. It's been quite a ride on this map. All I can say, I'm really enjoying the update. But let's get on with the video. And with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. So, the new map, Riparia, or as I would otherwise call it,
Riparia,
has granted the least used category of the Path of Titans roster the perfect environment in which to thrive and actually, enjoy the game, while also preserving those who wish to remain on land like before. And in this map, they've done a few interesting things. Whereas this map may be smaller in terms of length and width, they made up for it in terms of depth. You'll have your low lows in the ocean, but then also your very high highs on the cliffs. And unlike Gondwa, this map seems to just endlessly flow into itself from one zone to the next, keeping away from being too jarring of a change in terms of environment. Example, walking from Green Hills over into Big Quill Lake. 1 minute you're in a nice green field, the next moment you're in pretty much a desert lake. So the transition from zone to zone may look a little samey at times, but it still doesn't take away from the spectacle of the next zone you're about to go into. And if there's one thing I can assure you, thanks to the devs squashing the map compared to the previous ones, is that, especially in the ocean, there is no shortage of traffic. It's safe to say that this map and this entire update is really just an aquatic player's dream. I've personally never been a huge fan of aquatic combat in general, just because, I just can't keep up with it. Some people are really good with it and really like it that way. I've always struggled with it. But for those who really like aquatic combat and that's your favorite type of combat, well, you're the ones who are really in mind for this map. And hell, now you've got 3 more playables in which you can add to the list of what you want to use in your favorite type of combat, instead of just the usual Spino, Duck, and Suko. I would say Sarko, but I think only masochists actually enjoy trying to properly fight with Sarko. And don't even get me started on Conk and Meg.
Okay, I just killed a Tylo.
But one of my favorite parts about this map is how connected almost every zone is. All you gotta do is just look for it. Example, imagine you're swimming through a swamp and you end up seeing a waterfall that seemingly has an opening right beneath it. You decide to go through the waterfall and into the cave that was actually hiding behind it. And you keep following this cave until it ends up rearing up into another river. This can't be it, surely. There's gotta be more. So you push on, and then you see that, wait, there's another cave at the end of this river. And so again, you push on, and you notice, wait a minute, they're starting to give us little air pockets at the surface right now. And that makes sense, since, well, we're just about to hit another lake, which, might I say, is another beautiful zone. I'm sure that if most of the player base wasn't trying out Tylosaurus, this zone would have a lot more people. It could actually look like something almost out of an animated movie. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can still then head further, in which in this case I ended up spotting a Spino that was heading down. And you may think, wait a minute, does this actually just go deeper, like underground? Is this some sort of, underground civilization? And, well, technically, yeah, if you want to be really, really abstract with it, there's little air pockets for anyone who's semi-aquatic to take advantage of. Different quest items like coral chunks and ammonites for you to collect, and even branching pathways in which, in the heat of a chase, if you make a wrong turn, you may be cornered, and, well, you know what happens after that. But eventually, keep searching around, and you will find another exit to this cave, in which, weirdly, this ends up actually going upward. But in going upward, this still has a lot of branching paths. 'Cause get it? Path of Titans. But keep going, and you will eventually reach the surface. And you may notice that, wait, there's a bunch of other things here. In this case, for me, it was a bunch of baby Tylosaurus, along with then 2 adult Spinos. And so, the panic I'm feeling now, trying to remember in which direction do I go in this cave in order to not get trapped, cornered, and, well, you know what comes after that. It was needless to say that this was very, very fun and quite exciting, just getting chased through this entire cave system, until they eventually did give up, because, hey, what catches a Eurhino? But this transition of open space to claustrophobia, then maybe giving you a break with more open space, is almost cinematic in a way. And there's plenty of spots on the map that actually promote this kind of cinematography almost, in terms of, hey, you might be stranded on a rock as a Spino, just trying to defend yourself from a bunch of Tylos that, well, they can hop up onto ground. We all remember the Mosa scene from Jurassic World, right? But of course, it isn't perfect. There are things that do need to be actually touched up on and fixed. In this example, a lot of the time it's been collision with a lot of the things in this map. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. This is, yeah, we're potting today. Of course, there's plenty of different examples of interesting themes in different areas, along with then, collision problems in those areas. But continue giving your feedback to the devs, as they can't know what they haven't been told if they haven't seen it themselves. They're not mind readers. As for what I don't like about this map, I would say the questing at the moment. The devs are working on improving the questing, and they have been doing quite a lot of little hot patches in terms of just improving it, due to whether they've made a mistake in a zone by not adding a certain resource that there's a quest for in that zone, or low regeneration rates for different quest items that are needed for that zone. But for questing, I would say it feels a lot like Pandora. A lot more mark heavy, so you will get a lot of marks from each quest that you do, but the growth is a lot slower, with a lot more travel in between quest items and, well, different zones within POIs. The main thing, though, that has actually been really, really annoying in terms of questing has been the inconsistency of item spawns. And this doesn't mean just for the ocean, in which most of, the footage I'm showing is for the ocean. Even on Ramp, I was having a little bit of trouble with questing, just due to the item spawn inconsistencies. Let me give you an example. If you're on Gondwar, you end up actually, getting a Tiger Nut quest, and what you do, there's specific conditions in which Tiger Nuts will spawn. Like maybe around the paths in Green Hills, or under the bushes around Grand Plains, or in Savannah. Or another example being salt rocks. In this example here, in salt flats, you would end up finding salt rocks around the edges of this salt flats plain right here. You just saw it on the right, in the bottom right. But anyway, you get where I'm coming from. Instead of actually looking for the quest item itself on Gondwar and Pandora, instead you would actually look for the conditions in which that item would spawn. And that would make it a lot more helpful in order to actually get the quest done, and you can grow and get marks. Yeah, you get where I'm coming from. Though this is helped out a little bit by the amount of quest givers there are around the map. Sadly, there's still no quest givers for herbivores, but yeah. And luckily you can actually just cycle through quests until you get the type of quest that you want by just, talking to the quest giver. Get your quest. If it's something that's, not a quest that you're really interested in, then you abandon that quest and then talk to the quest giver again, and it'll perhaps give you a different one. Along with that, though, I will say the devs, again, they have been very proactive with the feedback that they've been getting in terms of trying to improve things, so, so it's not so grating to do these quests on this map. One example being, look in the top right for Big Tree Overlook.
I need roots, mud, and
Now,
branches.
you used to only be able to do 3 quests per zone, just like Pandora, but now they have ended up upping it to 5 quests per zone.
Oh,
So in other words, you can actually get, your green quests and your red
Come
quests
across
at the
that
same
Alberta.
time if you're in a group. There's also other things like multi-item collection quests now giving more growth than normal, single-item collection quests. So if you get a quest to collect bones and branches, then that'll give more growth than, say, just collecting
the saying,
branches.
there's no such thing
It's
as
a lot
chill
more
tribe.
respectful for your time and actually pushes you to, put a little bit of effort in. Here's hoping to more open-ended quests in the future, but, that'll come when it comes.
Probably healed up by now. And
What
it's
they've
still
done so
tanking.
far has been very, very nice, but obviously there's always improvements to be made. And so now on to the main part of this update that I'm sure that most players are really excited for, which is, of course, Tylosaurus. Now, obviously, I should just mention, the damn thing looks amazing. I love the animations. I love the visual of it. It's a big, giant, aquatic reptile. And one that you don't really think should fit in the areas that it ends up fitting into. You could probably go ahead and call it the Rex of the Sea, as pretty much that's the type of stats that Tylosaurus has. But weirdly, it's not actually made to just punch down, like all of the terrestrial apexes. This thing was made to compete with almost everything in the game. From being able to heal from eating other players' corpses with Ravenous just like Rex and Hats, to offensive abilities like Styraka's Joust attack, but instead now in a 3-dimensional direction. To a call that will slow down your movement speed and disable all your abilities for 5 seconds. I think this one needs a good tweak.
Oh, no.
And of course, the cause of everyone's nightmare, Clamp. And yes, with a certain build, or a certain build option, it is able to actually grab 3 slots. So all I can say is, be careful of where you drink. This damn huge thing is a better grabber and ambusher and, drowner than Sarko. Which is kind of worrying for Sarko. But one super interesting part about Tylo is its basic bite, and its basic bite is actually armor piercing. This thing ignores combat weight and isn't affected by it whatsoever. So, an example, if it deals 50 damage to a Spino, then it'll deal 50 damage to a Ramph. If there is anything really annoying about Tylo, it's gotta be fighting it on anything that isn't a Tylo itself, or a Spino, or another Apex. As you try to fight it, then you end up eventually getting clamped. And while it doesn't really deal much damage, you see that it's also building up Fracture in order to actually keep you in place for a longer amount of time to get whatever damage it wants in. And God forbid that there's a second Tylo around in order to just bite you while you're being held in place.
Yeah, they've just held me in place this time and I die. Oh, mate.
If there was one thing I would desperately want changed, that is Wide Gape. And his description increases carry capacity. 25% increased bucking resistance also, along with increased carry capacity. The carry capacity means you can grab 3 slots, which obviously is such a strong thing. Being able to, take a Dasp out of the fight, or you get where I'm coming from, or take a Lambio out of the fight like you saw earlier, that someone ended up grabbing the Lambio. Also then having bucking resistance is so over the top, in my opinion. It's at least way too much bucking resistance. Hat's even only got 12.5% bucking resistance whenever it grabs stuff.
Oh.
So having something that's pretty much at the top of its own food chain, when a playable that's literally its whole identity is around doing the exact same thing, but worse. It's kind of painful to see, without any bucking resistance also. Yeah, as I said, Tylo is better in every way than Sarko at doing Sarko's job, while also being able to be at the top of its food chain. So it's a big game creature that is primarily made to hunt other big game, but also still has the tools to get rid of any small game if needed. Another strange but interesting thing going on with Tylosaurus right now, but not only Tylosaurus, also with Eurhino and Kaiwhekea, is that Tylosaurus is a 4-slot playable with 5-slot stats. But, as I said, they also did the similar thing with Kaiwhekea and Eurhino. So Kaiwhekea is a 3-slot playable with 4-slot stats, and Eurhino is a 2-slot playable with 3-slot stats. So in the future, when we eventually get Leet-Sichthys, will we end up seeing a 5-slot playable with 6-slot stats? And that possibly being the only thing in the game with those stats. Interesting. So, TLDR, in terms of Tylosaurus, I like the playable, I love the visuals, I like the animations, it looks great. As for the kit, it's good for the most part. There's just a few abilities in its kit that are, how do I say, very, very oppressive to not just, stuff that's smaller than it, but also can kind of be abused, especially in this case where there's a bunch of mega packs until we get those matchmaking changes. But yeah, go give Tylo a try. And now for one out of the two things that are pretty much tying for first place of my favorite things in this update. And we'll start with Eurhino. Now, Eurhino isn't a true TLC, but more like it's been given a kit and we'll get like an actual TLC later down the line possibly, if that's on the list. But in order to stay properly relevant in this update, being a lot more aquatic focused, it has actually been given a kit. And so I would pretty much call this a pseudo TLC. And what they've done with Eurhino's kit is they've kind of given it a mishmash between Concavenator and Styracosaurus, but hey, fully aquatic. Frenzy and Bloodthirst are what you'd usually see on Concavenator, but then we have Braced, Impacts, and Joust, which you see on Styracosaurus, and then, just for good measure, we end up actually seeing Juggernaut from Pycno of all things. I mean, I wouldn't say no to it, it sounds cool. But then also still has just a couple of abilities in there that are unique to Eurhino that aren't seen on anything else. And hell, it even has Mob Rally, just like all the raptors. In the nicest way possible, it is kind of just a mongrel of the sea. It's like a mishmash of Styrak and Concavenator, as I said before, but then even has like traces of Pycno and Latin in there. It kind of works. It really does work, surprisingly. There's even a few safety options if you want to grab those, like Chatter to move a little bit faster, or if you want Slippery Hide to maybe get out of clamps a bit faster if you get hit by a Sarko, or god forbid a Tylo when it's holding you in place while its friend munches on you. Along with that then, it's just the secondary, more like the feeling of this thing. You're super quick, you're agile, you are almost like a piranha. You kind of just pick things apart, or you could play the waiting game. Like me, for instance, I much prefer using the whole, Bloodthirsty from Concavenator ability on Eurhino. I hit a load of bleed, and then I can kind of just sit back, let them tick down to death slowly, while I'm also just healing thanks to Bloodthirsty. The only real thing you need to just be careful of is anything with clamps, so same with Sarko, same with Tylo. If they go near land, don't follow them near the land, because as soon as you get clamped, you'll get placed on land, and then, you're literally a fish out of water. You die. Or just be careful of clamp in general, especially if they have a friend, because they hold you there, and then all of a sudden, well, yeah. And so, in this update, as I said at the beginning of, the section, this is tied for, number one in my favorites of what's come in this update. Being able to play this thing and have a consistent amount of interaction with other playables especially with the amount of time that Eurhino has been out of the limelight since, since its release, really, because Gondwa was the way it was, and the oceans were literally dead. Having at least the new kit has made Eurhino actually keep up and has kept it interesting, especially in comparison to all the new stuff we've already got in the first place. It was, as I said, not a real TLC, it was a pseudo TLC, but it was enough to keep it interesting. And needless to say, I will be playing a lot more Eurhino, let's just say that. And now for the other thing that is tied for, my number one favorite thing that came in this new update, which was the pseudo TLC for Kaiwhekea. And what they've done with Kai is they've given it a more support-based role. So, in example, offensive calls, Gurgle increases knockback, and then Call to Arms increasing damage by 25% for 90 seconds. Or you have defensive calls for a more, obviously, defensive role. So, an example like Hustle, giving yourself some extra movement speed as long as you're not sprinting around, or Rejuvenating Roar like Lambio, which ends up, getting rid of status effects off of yourself and your group mates faster, or Rallying Horn, increasing armor by 10% for all group members within 30 meters for 90 seconds. You just gotta make your choice whether you want to be offensive-based or defensive-based. And then there's also things like Lamb's Healing Presence to heal faster out of combat, Musician so you can put out more, support calls for your group mates, and then even some armor and damage stacking buffs if you want to have fun with that. And one of the best parts, they brought back Barrel Roll with a vengeance, as it now does AoE. And along with that, it also does a decent amount of knockback, in which, in terms of Kai's identity, I actually see it as the knockback aquatic now, I can't lie, even more so than Duck, right? Hell, they even got rid of Bite on Kaiwhekea and replaced it with Neck Swing. And Neck Swing, what else can I say? It looks hilarious. But along with it looking hilarious, it's also a directional attack, which can lead to some issues with aiming at times, especially with how aquatic combat is in general. But of course, that's something that can be, practiced with and, got good with, and is more of a skill issue on my part due to sucking at aquatic combat in the first place. But that doesn't matter. I actually love Kai in terms of what they've done to it. It, as I said with Eurhino, it's not really a TLC, it's like a pseudo TLC. They just give it a bunch of abilities that,
could possibly fit in with its identity,
or possibly create the identity for Kai now.
Oh, come on,
and it really allows, these playables that were seemingly pretty much just non-existent, practically extinct on Gondwa, actually have their place on this map. Are there tweaks that people would make, that I would make, that you would make, that everyone would make? Well, yes, but you could say that for any playable in the game also, that people would want to tweak it, either to make it stronger or weaker in some parts. Personally, I think it's a little too slow, but, that's neither here or there, really. But anyway, as I said earlier, it's just tied for my number one favorite with Eurhino. And just being able to, go on the map and actually have a chance of properly seeing Kai's or Eurhinos in the first place is such a breath of fresh air, outside of, oh, we're only gonna see, hundreds of thousands of damn Titans, or Ducks, or Sukos, or Spinos, or Rexes. You get where I'm coming from. You can hop in the water and possibly see something funny. Like this damn thing flopping its head around.
Fucking semi-aquatics!
And so, all I can say is, this update is amazing. Though there is one glaring issue with this update.
But there's no blue moss. Where's that fucking blue moss, man? I'm gonna go fuck it! Where the fuck is the blue?
Where's our blue moss? I want my blue moss, Matt. If anyone takes this serious, then I feel sorry for them. But yeah, I'm gonna try and round this off here. I got a bunch of random funny clips, maybe a fight or two in there that I'll throw in, and yeah, you know how it goes. They'll be kind of, mostly raw edits, maybe with a little bit of context that I'll talk a little bit through the start of the clip or whatever. You get how it goes. And yeah, let's get on with that, shall we? And so context here is Lawn Dart Kai.
I got potted. I got potted.
Next up, I saw Tylo, and I wanted to see how Eurhino goes with Bloodthirsty.
Okay, I just killed a Tylo with Eurhino.
I moved east, and about 3 minutes later, I saw the same Tylo.
Wait, is this the same guy? I think this is the same Tylo. No. No. I don't want to do it to you again, buddy. No. No. I don't want to do it to you again. Oh, I see. He's Death Scars again. I only bled out while grabbing me.
Context for this one is we are right next to a body of water. Yeah, so that happened. As I said, we're right next to a body of water, and the dynamo would have just followed them in, and then you'd have free movement against the dynamo to bait out an attack and then get a hit in. Instead, they just ran around on land and wasted all this stamina until they died. With the sale going on and Path being cheaper by 25%, probably a new player. It would make sense. And that may also be the same reason why this happened for this Rex right here. You can't face tank an Alpha Dynamo, nothing can. And then the whole situation gets even worse when a second one pops up out of the ground. For context in this one, I was very, very low food, as you can see in the bottom, and I saw a baby Suko, and I thought, oh yeah, I'll try out an ambush for the first time. And safe to say, it didn't work out. It failed. I failed astronomically. It got away. And so I gotta settle for something else. And the only additional context I can add is that I think this Tylo was perhaps already hurt. P.S. The Koi skin on Tylo is my favorite skin. Easily. Context for this one. Kai doesn't get lunge or any movement abilities until it reaches adolescent.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't get away from this thing! Yeah. I'm a Juby Kai! I can't get away! No. Oh, I died. Mate, Juby Kai is actually horrible. That I think that the fact that they don't give you back limb to at least get your lunge is cruel. Last one. I'm happy enough surviving, if not pushing them away. And here's a little tip for anybody who wants to try out Kai. Whenever fighting Tylos, use knockback on them mid-call to cancel it. Oh, come on, no. Oh. It's safe to say I had to play very passively for this. And, you know, I'm just trying to play the out-heal game by trying to get hits with AoE while, you know, they're not getting as many hits. It doesn't always work out too well, but let's just say at the end of this, they pretty much just gave up and I never saw them again. And then not long after, I ended up coming across a Tyranno Titan with their baby. They were having a drink at this little lake right here, and what else can I say other than I smacked the baby in the face? And so here we are at the end. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Love the update. Are there changes we'd make? Are there improvements to be made? Of course there are. But, as I said also in my YouTube post, growing pains for a brand new update that's, you know, introduced quite a lot. Like, for instance, I honestly was not excited for a brand new map. I can't lie, I was not excited for a brand new map. Purely for the sake of what happened with Gondor. Practically a Fortnite map, but like 90% of the map was just devoid of life, including the ocean, which they've kind of just reversed that all around now, right? Obviously, everyone's trying to grow all their dinos, in which we haven't really found where everybody's going to try and hotspot yet for this, and also the case that we're kind of also waiting for the matchmaking changes, in which, yeah, you get where I'm coming from. There's going to be mega packs until we get those matchmaking changes, but then, you know, otherwise, where do you think the next hotspot is going to be for this map? Because me personally, I haven't had any trouble in finding anybody at any time, just because, well, as I said at the beginning of the video, the map is so much smaller. They went from a 9x9 map, or it was an 8x8 map, I can't remember, in terms of kilometers, and they've reduced that down to like 5x5, so significantly smaller. And thanks to that, it's increased traffic around the map exponentially. Who would have thought, if you squash people together in a small room, you have an easier time bumping into them? So for the holiday season, we're eating good, or we've eaten good, or we're going to continue eating good for this holiday season thanks to this. It is certainly a lot to keep us busy right now. But tell me, what is your favourite thing in this update? I've already told you 2 of mine, and yeah, your turn now. Let me know down in the comments. But, with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye.